Hey guys, Pope Sano here, and look, have you ever asked yourself this question? Why can't I climb in jungle? Everybody says jungle's so OP, but why am I stuck?
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Look, maybe you've looked at other players in high elo and just wonder, what is it that they're doing that I'm not doing? And why do they make low elo look so dang simple? Or in those VOD reviews that a certain Pope posts all the time, how does he just pick out these things that players should be doing that they're not? Is it the fact that high elo players are just these mechanical gods?
Oh, look at the class, look at the moves! Thank you! What was that?
Is it that their macro is so far advanced? Is it their rigorous combat training? Look, in all seriousness, it's natural to wonder these things when you're sitting there with a match history looking like the Christmas colors got a divorce. Today I'm going to talk through some of the most common mistakes that I see from Iron all the way through Emerald, an overview and some next steps and some recommendations that if you're in that specific elo, you can apply to your game and hopefully look to improve. Starting off with Iron Elo. If you find yourself in Iron, you likely struggle with many of the fundamentals of the game. And that's not to say that you don't do anything right, but it probably means that you're still trying to learn the basics of what each champion does, the range of spells, the damage threshold on spells, trying to look at your minimap, and maybe even still trying to learn what items do. From the jungle perspective, it is also likely that we're not quite familiar with basic concepts like leash ranges, smite values, and our planning is very static. Like, you probably start the same camp and path the same way every single game. And this will certainly go completely unpunished, and it means that it can be difficult to know what exactly you're doing wrong. Here are my first steps. First, start to think about the strengths of your own champion and play toward that. Does your champion clear very strongly? Are you a play-making ganker? Are you playing an objective-focused champion like Shyvana, for example? It doesn't matter. Just play toward that one strength. Ask yourself, what is that one thing? You don't need to overwhelm yourself at all by feeling the pressure to suddenly know the in-depth aspects of jungle and Iron. Just shut out the complexities and play towards the way that Riot has literally designed your champion. I also highly recommend using a standard builds that you can basically apply every single game. Really, the key here is playing consistently. If you don't understand consistency yet, all you have to do is queue up. Play towards the strengths, use online resources such as my YouTube channel or other sites like UGG to help you get started on the right foot. I promise, if you put in enough time, you're very likely to climb out of Iron. Next up is Bronze.
Sup, bros?
Within Bronze, not too much changes until you get to probably about Bronze 1, where you start to see silver players in your game. Here, there's still a decent lack of fundamentals in the jungle, and you're going to see many glaring errors like static pathing, the same build happening every single game, and probably mistakes in the runes as well. Likewise, in-game, Bronze players tend to not use the game's mechanics in their intended way, like dropping wards in areas that aren't really going to help, or taking a crazy fight when you're very low on HP. Where you'll see a larger improvement in Iron to Bronze is the fact that Bronze players are less likely to, frankly, just be AFK, and their mechanics tend to be a lot better. In fact, I think there is an argument to be made that the biggest jump in mechanics from the perspective of raw basics, like champion control, is Iron to Bronze. You're going to see tons of eye-burning plays still in Bronze, but generally you won't see people clearly lagging behind the demands of the game in just basic clicking. My next steps in Bronze. Within the context of the jungle, Bronze players need to get better than their opponents at basic clearing. Generally, full clearing on repeat will work in Bronze, because you eliminate the distractions that Bronze players fall for. Now, I've seen Platinum players continue to get distracted, but here, you just need to find something really consistent and cling on to it. It's very similar to Iron, but in the sense that Bronze players probably can utilize that golden XP a lot better than Iron players. You see, you'll slingshot yourself ahead in golden XP and probably find yourself in a position to carry those very common 35+ minute games. Also, I really recommend identifying a super easy win con in bronze and trying to play towards that. Things like Dragon Soul or a really snowbally lane are good options here. You can take advantage of the fact that the minimap still really isn't a consideration of bronze by full clearing straight into a gank, into base, and then rinse and repeat. It's a great strategy, really consistent in this elo. I recommend playing champions that can accomplish exactly the plan I laid out for you, like Briar, Amumu, Rammus, Lilia, and even something like Mordekaiser. Moving on to Silver. This is where you start to see players who more so play ranked frequently, and I think this is one of those premier elos to become stuck in due to the inflated amount of players around this elo, and the fact that games will constantly be thrown at major points like Baron and Elder. I think it is essential in this elo to never ever give up. People here are usually pretty good at their main champions, and it becomes harder to punish them for pretty beginner type mistakes because mostly, and yeah, being honest, most players here, they're not really beginners anymore. In fact, they probably are playing hundreds of games. In the jungle, you're still going to see static pathing, and this is kind of the first elo where I recommend that we need to start thinking about who the enemy jungler is. Don't get me wrong, there's still going to be major errors like improper camp kiting and bad base timings. But if you can start to think outside of the box and just include one other champion, in this case the enemy jungler, then you can actually start to beat silver players very frequently. Players also do not know at all how to play from behind, so I'm going to start recommending champs that are very easy and versatile to punish things like overextending, while also having the kit to still full clear. As for some next steps, as I stated earlier, silver players will rarely think outside of themselves, but this is where as junglers we can hard punish them. For example, people will rarely if ever ward due to the focus on oneself. We can punish this through beginning to push bad mistakes or weird actions into a bad spot for the enemy. For example, if you see them gank early and get hard chunked, you should be instantly thinking about stealing away a camp, or maybe even invading their camp that they're going to because they're low on resources. Just prioritize getting your own camps first. Similar to how I recommended bronze to full clear, gank, and then reset, this is the same sort of thing with a bit of seasoning on top. I want you to still play toward full clearing, then look for a gank, but if there's nowhere to gank, then I want you to try to steal something away. Now, this will require knowledge of the enemy jungler, but this is how you can begin to think a little bit more than just yourself. Ask yourself, where could the enemy jungler be? What camps might they have done? These are good things to consider. Even if you just steal away 1 or 2 camps, it's 1 or 2 less camps that the enemy has. In this elo, I recommend champions like Fiddlesticks, Rammus, Amumu, and let's add in some spice with Nocturne. Alright. I'm gonna say something controversial. Gold is mid-elo. Yes, you heard it here. If you are in gold, in the grand scheme of things of all players, you are getting to that point where you're at the 50th percentile. We need to start to really think about more than just ourselves in a way that begins to change the way that we actually play the game on a consistent basis. In gold, players will likely react to something major happening. For the most part, there's still major macro misplays and little consideration for the information on the map, but games can be easily thrown, and so if you get behind, you should really never be forfeiting. You know, if there's someone that's very, very low somewhere on the map, there's a good chance that a gold player will react to that. If there is someone pushing with Herald down a lane, there's a good chance that a gold player will react to that. However, it's not going to be all the time, and we can still take advantage of the fact that macro is still severely lacking in gold. I've also seen some gold players with genuinely good mechanics, which is something you need to consider. In gold, play your best champion. By now, you should be narrowing down a pool of 3 to 4 champions that you regularly play, because most likely everyone else that you're going to play against is doing the exact same thing. Some next steps in Gold is that this is the first ELO where you need to start to have the basics of the game down. Solid kiting, a fundamental understanding of how champions interact with one another, and a general idea of the enemies and their preferred spikes, strengths, and weaknesses. For instance, if you're playing Kayn into a Kindred, while Kindred isn't the best pick in Gold due to the macro mistakes of that ELO, you should still be aware that Kindred is going to invade you. In this ELO, you don't need to have a solution to everything as well, but you do need to stop putting yourself in a situation where bad things can happen to you. In Gold, players will begin to start to punish you if you give them a clear opportunity to. What this also means is that you need to have a basic understanding about your lanes and begin to switch up your pathing toward a lane you'd like to play around. Really, you should know that a Kassadin hitting level 16 is a clear win condition, and start to play with that knowledge. Meaning, a slow game with a Kassadin on your team is good for you, so you don't need to make anything crazy happen, but your plan could be more about ensuring they're scaling without too much trouble happening around them. Champions I recommend in Gold are really strong teamfighting champions because there's still the tendency to ARAM and fight over nothing. So, Fiddlesticks, Zac, Ivern, Rammus, and Nocturne as well are going to be great picks for you. Next up is Platinum. Alright, this is the first ELO where you now do need to think about the state of the map. In Platinum, you can still win through just being mechanically better, but you're also going to start to find a lot of one-tricks and people that play a single role or a single champion basically every single game. Meaning, to be outright mechanically better isn't always going to be the best option anymore. However, I do find that in Platinum there's generally a lack of respect about what enemy champions can do, as they still don't quite play around the proper spikes and tempo that they should be. What this means is that in Platinum, players may execute a fight with some level of competency in a mechanical sense, but they'll rarely get into that fight or look to fight with the correct reasons in mind. Remember, in this ELO, players will look at the map and even begin to formulate plans around pretty decent reasons, like matchups that might be winning or losing, or going to take an objective that they see when they see the enemy jungler on a ward somewhere else. Some next steps for Platinum are as such. To continue to climb it in Plat and through Plat, you should be looking for smaller, more nuanced advantages, like death timers that grant you a bit of tempo, some gold spikes, item spikes, paying attention to important timers on the map. For example, if you find an early kill, you should be instantly asking yourself the thing you can do most to gain tempo. It could mean you instantly go back to base and spend that gold and turn that advantage into something tangible, or it could mean that you invade for an extra camp or two. In general, you should also expect to lose a fight if you go into it with 1.5 to 2,000 gold in your pocket, and this is a mistake that I see far too often in this ELO. You need to turn all of your gold into items before attempting things in a lot of cases. Likewise, you're not quite in an ELO where you can lose a game off of just bad pathing, but you should be looking to punish the inevitable bad pathing of your Platinum opponents. Ask yourself, really, what is the weakest point of their pathing that you can exploit? Finally, here we are in Emerald. This is the true ELO hell right now, where you have a huge mix in skill level from Emerald 4 to Emerald 1. What that means is you need to be as sharp as possible in most aspects of the game in order to hit Diamond. It is true that players in Emerald are really solid, and you're on the cusp of what some people might call high elo. However, it is still true that there's a ton of mistakes that we can exploit in Emerald. Here, you should expect that most meta tactics will be employed throughout the game. And, things like proper warding, decent map awareness, freezing waves, versatile jungle pathing, this is the thing that players will start to implement when they want to hit Diamond. Here are some next steps for this ELO. You cannot play just around your own strengths anymore in Emerald. Rather, you must play towards the enemy's weaknesses. For example, you could know relatively accurately the most annoying thing that someone could do to your champion, but do you know that same question if you asked it about the enemy champions? You should be playing to avoid that happening to you, but you need to play not just to put yourself ahead, but to put your enemy behind. So if I'm playing Emerald and I see a Shaco that's on the enemy team, I'm going to be pinging my teammates to late invade to either kill him on Raptors or to ruin his boxes. Because I know that him starting W early means not only does he not have the ability to really fight early, but if you can proc those boxes, you'll set his early advantage behind in a big way. You need to ask yourself these questions about the champions that you are playing against, because in Emerald, the players are competent enough in most aspects of the game that you won't just be able to run over them. You need to play smart, and you need to play strictly around your spikes and the enemy's low points. Champions I recommend in Emeralds are Evelynn, Fiddlesticks, Briar, Graves, and Jarvan. Well, I hope this brief overview of every elo kind of helped you out. If it did, leave a like and a sub, that would mean a lot to me. And let me know if you'd like to see this for other roles as well, or maybe an updated type thing as we approach Season 14. Okay. Have a great day, you guys. Pope out.